compassion is caring so much about someone else that when you see a need, you help take care of that need.
He's the one that will sit with people who are sitting alone at lunch, and he tries to include people and just sees needs naturally everywhere. Sometimes I think the hardest thing to do is empathize with our own children because we don't want to understand what they're going through. We want them to do what we want them to do.
A lot of times when we ask God to give us a heart of compassion, we underestimate how inconvenient it might be.
If God's going to call you to it, he's going to call you through it and be with you through it.
Sure.
We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get our eyes off him. But if he can have compassion for me in moments like that, then I surely can have passion and compassion for someone else.
All right.
Parents, welcome back to another episode of Pep Talk, the Parent Experience Podcast. I'm Kayla, joined by my co-host.
I'm Robert.
And we're just so excited to be back for another month, giving you a pep talk in your parenting journey.
Yes, we're so glad you guys are here. Thanks for joining back for another episode. Don't forget, subscribe wherever you're watching. And if you find this episode helpful, share it with a friend. That's the best way to get the word out so that other people can receive a monthly pep talk and encourage them in their parenting journey.
Parents, you're doing a great job. You're a month into back to school, getting back into those routines and rhythms, all the new friendships, so many new names to learn of all the students in your kids' class. Like, you're doing a great job. I think, take an extra sip of that coffee today. You're doing really good.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. But hey, this month at New Life Kids, we're talking about compassion.
Yeah.
We're talking about letting your light shine. That's our verses from Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before others so that they will see your good deeds and praise God who is in heaven. And so we're going to be talking all month about how Jesus had compassion on the people around him, how he cared so deeply. That's our definition of compassion, is caring so much about other people so that when you see that they have a need, you meet it. You want to do something about that need. And so we want to help your children start praying and asking God and recognizing opportunities to have compassion, because that's what Jesus called us to do, is to do what he did. And he had compassion on people all around him. I think it's going to be a really good month. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and if you guys want to learn more information about that, mynewlifechurch.com/kids. See all the stuff happening with New Life Kids over there. But we have an incredible interview with Matt Richardson, who is going to be talking to us just about compassion. He's got some great examples of how you can practically start practicing compassion with your kids. And then also he's got great stories. He's just a great guy. You're going to enjoy the interview. So why don't we go ahead and just head straight into it.
Matt, would you tell everybody a little about yourself, what you do, who you are, your family?
Sure. I've been married for almost 17 years.
Woohoo!
I know.
Big
awesome.
deal.
Yeah. We have 4 kids. 13 is, nope. Oh, man, that's going to be awesome. I forgot one. We
won't let them listen to
Okay, good. We have a 15-year-old, 13, 8, and 3-year-old, and it's a blast. And for the last 4 years, going on 5 years, I've been teaching at Kearney High School, teach English, everyone's favorite subject. And so, that's a little bit about me. We were missionaries for a while. We've been pastors on staff at a couple of different churches, and just 5 years ago made the switch to education. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in the Nebraska area?
No, I grew up in southern Ohio, down in Ohio, Cincinnati area, and we were there my whole life, basically. I lived 5 years in Germany when I was a kid because of military, and then was in Ohio from 5 until 18.
Okay, and how did you and your wife meet?
Well, I was doing an internship in Omaha at a church called Flatland. Now, it was Grace Community Church back then. Pastor Jeff was on staff, and I was an intern there. And her sister and I started a young adults group together, and then they moved in with each other and kind of met through her sister. So.
Yeah. That's so awesome. If you watch New Life Online or you attend in the Kearney campus, you probably will recognize Matt. He also is one of our worship leaders singing. He has a great voice.
He has an angelic voice.
Robert.
That's true.
Angelic.
Well, thank
you. That's what people say. I don't know if you know that, but people say he just has an angelic voice.
I've always heard that it's like he's like a Michael Bublé
Ooh,
sort of guy.
I'll
like
take
that's what
that.
I've heard.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Michael Bublé.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you gonna sing jazz for us for the podcast?
I could.
That would give me a pep talk.
That's awesome.
Oh man. Well, Matt spoke at our family night tonight. We're talking about compassion this month. Compassion is caring so much about someone else that when you see a need, you help take care of that need, right? And so, Matt, I just think you and your wife have done a great job of just showing Jesus's love through compassion. I know that it's God's heart that he's developed inside of you. But you guys have been really great at being obedient in that wherever God places you. I know you have quite the journey of all the places God's taken you, but I really admire that. So tonight we're specifically focusing on, though, how do we help our kids develop compassion? So like first thing that comes to your mind, what would you say about a parent that wants to help their child develop compassion?
Well, I think it starts with being compassionate and practicing it in front of our children, being open to allowing them to see our mistakes. Sometimes we try to fill needs that probably weren't meant to be met, or we fall on our face in trying to do that. And so just being open to allowing our kids to be there, to see our compassionate hearts. And one thing that we've done in our household for many years, actually, we were dating when we started praying this prayer, but we pray all the time that God would just be glorified in and through our lives as individuals and as a family. And God is compassionate. He's love. And so when you pray that, he starts to do some things. But yeah, let them see, and then involve them as much as possible. And we've tried to do that. We moved overseas in 2014 for the first time, and we took our 2 kids at the time with us, and we lived in Costa Rica and El Salvador, meeting needs there, and had them on the forefront with us. And even being back here, we try to get them. We go to El Salvador every summer. We take our kids. We took all 4 of them for the first time last summer, and that was a lot of fun. And just seeing, the heart for compassion start to grow in our kids. It takes a little longer for some of them, but our 15-year-old for sure has really just become a compassionate young man, and he sees needs in the hallways at school. He's the one that will sit with people who are sitting alone at lunch, and he tries to include people and just sees needs naturally everywhere. So it's been really cool to see.
So if I'm a parent listening, I'm saying, I can't afford to take my kids to Costa Rica or El Salvador every year. What are you talking about?
You're going to go in Matt's suitcase.
Oh, okay. So Matt actually is offering to take you guys. No.
Yes, that's right.
So what would you say to a parent who has that? Well, how do I do that then?
That's great. And, I think it goes back, we talked about it a little bit tonight, but in Genesis, God calls us to 2 purposes: to be in relationship with him and then to reflect him. And so reflecting him can be done anywhere. That can be to our kids. Sometimes I think the hardest thing to do is empathize with our own children because we don't want to understand what they're going through. We want them to do what we want them to do. And so I think just it doesn't have to be in a different country. It can be right here in our context that we find ourselves in. And that's the easiest thing because that's free, right? Yeah. So if we're teachers or we work in sales or whatever the case may be, if we can start to live our lives as God has called us to, and that is to be compassionate people, our kids are going to see that. And so that's where it starts, right here where we are.
So maybe a parent needs to be a little bit more creative, Yeah. Maybe it doesn't look like taking a trip to a foreign country to meet needs, but maybe it's seeing with eyes, brainstorming together, what is a need that we see that people might have around, and then making a like you prioritize taking a trip. Maybe it looks like prioritizing going and meeting that need. If it's partnering with the Habitat for Humanity, or if there's a soup kitchen, or if there's something like that.
An old couple living next door who needs a lawn mowed or leaves raked. There are so many needs in the world, and it doesn't have to look like one thing. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I do want to go back to when you and your wife went initially out on the mission field. I think a lot of times when we ask God to give us a heart of compassion, we underestimate how inconvenient it might be. How, we hear you saying that you're traveling across to a different country. And I'm like, wow, you're amazing. That's so cool. I cannot imagine, though, if I actually put myself in your shoes, I'm like, that sounds really challenging to me.
There were lots of challenges that came with that. Our oldest at the time really embraced living in a different country. Our second child, who was only 3, really fought it and didn't want to learn Spanish and didn't want anything to do with it. Went to a Spanish-speaking school. I don't know how he survived for the time he was there because he just didn't want anything to do with it. And so there are definitely challenges. And that's just with our kids. You know, obviously leaving family behind is a huge thing. We're really close as a family. And so being alone, quote unquote, on the mission field without your family is huge. But I feel like, you know, the old cliche says, if God's going to call you to it, he's going to call you through it and be with you through it.
Sure.
But there are uncomfortable situations that take place right here in Nebraska. And I think just being open to God's voice and what he has for you, regardless of, because in the end, the sacrifices, quote unquote, that we make here on earth aren't really sacrifices when we look at the big picture.
Sure. That's a good point too. I guess I was kind of wondering if, when those moments arise, you know, when it does feel inconvenient, when you notice that your neighbor is struggling to pull in their trash can and it's an elderly person, you know, it's raining out and it is inconvenient. You were running late for work, but you saw a need. God is showing you a need. Well, what are some things like maybe that you tell yourself, that you remind yourself, or you remind your kids if they're like, I don't want to help with this problem? Like maybe give us some verbiage we could use with our families in fostering that heart of compassion.
Sure. I think it's simple to just remind ourselves and our kids that it's 30 seconds to bring in a trash can. It's yes, it's time and we're running late, and but that time's always going to be there, and we can, you know, I think with our kids, it's reminding them that they have needs themselves, and so in order for to expect others to meet our needs, we need to be willing to meet needs. And I think that's something that, you know, in my personal life, I felt like now looking back at 39 years old, I feel like I have so many needs that have been met that I feel like that's probably why I want to meet needs, is because I was there at that empathy piece. And so I feel like just reminding them that you're going to be in need. And so you're going to hope that someone takes that 30 seconds one day to help you really matters, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, what comes to mind is the golden rule.
Right.
Do unto others what you would have them do unto you. You know, treat others the way you want to be treated is a simple way to say that. Yeah,
I think, and I love that you already talked about like having that as an example, like, hey, we're going to do this together as a family. That's our family challenge this month, is challenging families. Like, hey, find some opportunity to develop compassion, whether it is a project that you're doing, or it's being really committed to praying to build God's kingdom and praying for people who are directly involved in compassion moments all around the world. You know, we can foster that heart of compassion for our kids just by putting attention on it, which is, I think, such a great part about having that as a theme for a whole month.
Yeah.
But the king of compassion was Jesus, right? There were a couple stories. Would you just share maybe one of the stories from Jesus that we see his compassion?
Sure. I shared it, a little bit of it tonight, but my favorite story of his compassion was when the disciples are on the boat in the middle of a storm and he's walking out toward them on the water, and Peter all of a sudden says, wait a minute, I think that's Jesus. And so he calls out to him, and if it's you really, Jesus, call me out. And so Jesus does what everyone hopes he doesn't, and he says, sure, let's play this game. You want to come on out? Come on out. And so Peter jumps in and starts walking on the water, and the compassion, I feel like in this story specifically, really kind of gets forgotten because Peter starts to sink, right? He gets his eyes off Jesus, and Jesus could have so easily been like, yep, this is what happens, Peter, when you get out of the boat, when you take that step, when you, when you get your eyes off of me, this is what happens. You sink and you fail. And although that's not what he did, he reached down, he grabbed Peter by the hand, he pulled him out, he walked him back to the boat. And I feel like Jesus's compassion, even in that moment of fear, of doubt, of whatever was going through Peter's mind at the time, his compassion shows us that, yes, he still loves us. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get our eyes off him. But if he can have compassion for me in moments like that, then I surely can have passion and compassion for someone else in those times too. So.
I feel like that's a good, I felt convicted when you were sharing that about that when it comes to my kids. You know, like Jesus loved Peter. And how many times would I be like, why weren't you, you know, like just that quick response of I'm inconvenienced.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but like, oh man, Jesus helped me show compassion to my kids that you would show me.
That's
good.
good.
Like, oh man, that was really convicting to me. Man, well, so you are a teacher. So tell us a little bit about what does compassion look like in your day-to-day job?
Well, I deal with freshmen mostly throughout the day, so a lot of compassion is needed because you have a group of students who don't really understand what high school looks like, and they're trying to make a name for themselves because they're low on the totem pole, but they also come in with real needs, families that are broken, and people have told them for years that they're not good enough or they can't do this or whatever the case may be, and it's not just physical needs and financial needs, it's spiritual needs, it's emotional needs. And so I get the privilege of being compassionate every day to, I think like I said, I counted them today, and I have almost 800 students that have come through my classroom in the last 4 years. And that's a lot of compassion that's needed. And so every day I feel like I seek out. I have a privilege. First block at the Kearney High School, we have 5 blocks a day. So we have 5 classes, and my first block is my plan. And I've had that the whole time I've been there. And I spend about 30 to 40 minutes every day in my plan just praying over every seat. God, I don't know what this student is going through. And now being 2 weeks in, I can say the name. God, I don't know what Maria's going through, but when she comes into this classroom today, if you can give me something for her. And I do that over every seat every day, and I feel like God has really opened doors. I don't have to say a lot. I just have to reflect God, like we go back to Genesis, reflecting him, and then the stories come, right? And I shared a story tonight about Alexi, who came in as a freshman and was just really hard, and she didn't want anything to do with anything. She didn't care about anything. And I saw something in her, and I challenged her, and I stood beside her, and I defended her, I protected her, and over the course of the years, she wrote me a letter just last year and was just saying, hey, sometimes you're going to need a reminder of why you do what you do, and I'm a reason, and I'm here because of you, and I would defend you because you defended me. And so when you get those stories, one, I keep them, right? I challenged everyone tonight to have a Why I'm Here book, no matter what you do as a profession, even if you're a stay-at-home parent. It's great to remind yourself of why I do what I do every day, and I have that in my room. And so if it's a bad day, I pull it out, so those happen every day. And it's just really exciting to be a part of a system where it gets a bad rep. Public schools isn't like everyone's favorite place to be, but I get to be God's light, right? I get to reflect him in a world that needs him the most in these hallways. And so I look forward to it every day. Yeah.
Matt, I feel challenged when you talk about that. And as a parent, whether they are a stay-at-home or they're working, whatever that day-to-day looks like, I wonder if as parents, can we start to ask God to give us the heart you have for your students, for our community, for our block. God, would you, the kids that are walking down my block, the people that live next door to me, pray over them when you drive past them.
Yeah.
Pray for them while we walk past them until you get to know their names and you get to know them. Then we can pray more specifically for them, right? But I think we could mimic that same sort of heart that you have of like, okay, God, this is the home where I live in. This is the apartment we live in right now. And the neighbors upstairs might stomp around like elephants, but I'm going to be praying for those elephant feet. God, help me to know how to love them well, to have compassion on them well. And I'm so inspired by that. And I think if there's something we could take away, that would give us a pep talk today. Like, let's ask God to give us that compassion like you have for your students, for our home and for our block. I think that would be a great way to radiate Jesus's love. Like our verse this month is, let your light shine so others see the good things you do, but not just so that they just see the good things you do, that they see the good things you do and praise God.
And I love that because, we didn't talk about it tonight, but I think it's in the very next chapter. Jesus is talking in the same sermon, and he's telling people, like, don't pray in public because if you do these things in public and people see it, that's all you get, right?
True.
And I want you to pray in secret. But then just a chapter before, he's saying, do it so people can see. But then he adds that piece, and they worship me or they praise me and they see that it's me. It's a reflection of him.
Right.
And so I love that about God.
Yeah, me too.
I love that. Well, in wrapping up our time together, Matt, I'd love to just ask the final question that we love to ask everyone. And it's really this: what's something in your parenting journey that you wish you would have learned sooner? That way we can help the parents who are listening maybe not have to go through as much of the pain of learning through experience as you have, so they can be a little bit further ahead than you were at the same spot in their parenting journey.
That's good. I think for me right now, I feel like we're doing a lot of backtracking with our one of our children, and I think it's because you hear it all the time that every kid is different, and you think you know that, and then you treat them all the same, and you try to make them fit into a box that they're not supposed to be in. And so right now I feel like we're backtracking because we tried to fit someone into a box that they weren't supposed to be in. And so that's it. I want, if you have more than one kid, you have more than one kid, right? We have 4 and none of them are the same. And the older they get, the more it's realized. But by the time they get to where we are now, it's a little too late. So yeah, that would be it. That every student, every kid, every person is different. And we need to understand that.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Matt. It's been great talking with you.
So
Thank
good.
you, guys too.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
What an awesome interview with Matt. He's so fun to talk to, and he always has great stories. And so like I said, I'm so inspired by the idea of wanting to have that heart of compassion like Matt has with his students, but just with the people God has around me, on my block, in my home, what kids are my kids bringing over, just fostering that heart of compassion to let God's light shine.
Yes. Yeah. So over the next 15 days, finish out the month, be intentional about praying that heart of compassion for your community, for your area, for your family. And if you found this episode helpful, you can share it and share the word about Pep Talk with a friend just by copying the link where you're watching, and share it with them. If it encouraged you, I'm sure it will encourage someone else. Remember to like, subscribe, and join us back next month on the 15th when we release another episode. Until then, remember, you guys are doing a great job. Keep raising incredible kids to know and love God, and we'll see you on the next episode.